So once again, you are welcome to MuhammedNaftalScience.com channel, and I always remind you to subscribe. Always subscribe and put comments to see how we can improve on our videos. And this is chemistry, clinical chemistry, and today we are looking at carbohydrates. So let us get started. Carbohydrates. I know when we were young, they were teaching us carbohydrates are energy-giving foods, isn't it? And these carbohydrates, these are organic substances. Carbohydrates are organic substances. And these organic substances, they are composed of elements like carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. They have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 1. These are the carbohydrates. So they are hydrocarbon, they contain a hydrocarbon chain, whereby these are organic substances containing of the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the ratio of 1 to 2 to 1. Meaning the general formula of carbohydrates, general formula is CH2O in brackets N, where N represents number of carbon atoms. Number of carbon atoms. That is carbohydrates. And these carbohydrates having this general formula, we know that they are classified. These carbohydrates are classified. Classification of carbohydrates. But before classification, we can look at what is composed in this formula. We know that these carbohydrates, they have functional groups in them. And they can either have a functional group whereby it is a keto group or an aldehyde group. Or they can have a ketone group. So these are organic substances made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in this ratio, and this is the general formula, and they contain either ketones or aldehyde functional group. Those are the carbohydrates. Then when we look at the classifications, how are they classified? Carbohydrates are classified into major three ways. That is, we have monosaccharides. We have monosaccharides. We have disaccharides. We have oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. This is important to know about carbohydrates. They are classified into monosaccharides, disaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Whereby mono, you can ask yourself, the word mono means one. So these monosaccharides, for them, they are made up of a simple sugar. Or we can say that they are simple sugars. These are simple sugars. They are made up of a single sugar unit. That's why we call them monosaccharides. But they are simple sugars, meaning they cannot be hydrolyzed further. They cannot be hydrolyzed further, since they are simple sugars. And examples under monosaccharides, we have those with 3 carbon called trioses. We have those, these ones, they are 3 carbon. We have those with 4 called tetroses. We have those with 5 carbon sugars called pentoses. Then those ones with 6 called hexoses. But majorly we normally give examples under hexoses, whereby under hexose, those are 6 carbon sugar. We have our glucose, we have our galactose, we have our fructose. These ones being the major monosaccharide under hexose. Under pentoses we have the ribose, isn't it? Under pentoses we have an example of ribose, and these ribose sugars are used in the biosynthesis of DNA and RNA, whereby in DNA we have deoxyribose, in RNA we have ribose. Then the ones with the 3, we remember in glycolysis pathway, we have fructose 1,6-bisphosphate being broken down into dihydroxyacetone and glycerolaldehyde 3-phosphate. So we shall see examples here. We have like glycerolaldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxyacetone as examples of trioses. So whenever you're asked to give examples of monosaccharides, many people tend to give hexoses only, but still we have also the 3 carbon, the 4 carbon, and the 5 carbon, isn't it? So there's examples under monosaccharides, which are made up of a simple sugar. Then the second class, they are disaccharides. And disaccharides, for them, maybe you can allow me right this side. Disaccharides these are carbohydrates which are made up of 2 sugars. Di means 2, isn't it? So these are made up of 2 sugars, 2 sugar units. And because they are made up of 2 sugar units, these 2 sugar units are joined together by glycosidic bond. Are joined together by glycosidic bond. Glycosidic bond. Whereby the major glycosidic bond, the major one, is alpha 1,1,4. Alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond is the major. We have also 1,1 and we have also alpha 1,6. But the major is always alpha 1,1,4 glycosidic bond, which joins the 2 sugar molecules. Meaning, these disaccharides, if we have disaccharides, they can undergo hydrolysis. They can undergo hydrolysis. Hydrolysis means in presence of water. If you have the enzyme and you add water, these disaccharides can undergo hydrolysis to give 2 simple sugars, to give 2 monosaccharides. For example, if I have maltose, this maltose can be hydrolyzed by maltase enzyme in the presence of water. That is a hydrolysis reaction, and we are able to form 2 molecules of glucose. Glucose plus glucose. If you have sucrose, it can be hydrolyzed to glucose plus fructose. In the presence of sucrase, what I like with science is that these enzymes are named according to the substrate they are catalyzing. So we see sucrase catalyzing the hydrolysis. It catalyzes the hydrolysis of sucrase, glucose, and fructose. And if we have also maltose is hydrolyzed, no, we have lactose is hydrolyzed to glucose plus galactose. In the presence of lactase enzyme and water, because being a hydrolysis reaction. And these can be asked in your objectives, in your exams, that which of the following type of sugar are formed on hydrolysis of lactose. And one thing I want to remind you that lactose can be called milk. It is the one found in milk. So in milk, whenever the baby is breastfeeding or whenever you are taking milk the milk from cows, they contain lactose. Then sucrose is what we call the table sugar, or you can call it cane sugar. Cane sugar. It is table sugar or cane sugar. The one we take when we put in the tea is what we call sucrose, or we can call it cane sugar, not sugar cane, but cane sugar or table sugar. Then this sucrose is the one that is found even in Siemens. Can you imagine that Siemens, our darling Siemens, contain sucrose? Actually, this sucrose, they do not contain sucrose, but sucrose gives us our fructose, and this fructose forms part of bull Siemens, and even ours contain fructose as a source of energy. So what gives the sperms to migrate to the promised land, to the egg, is what we call fructose, which is providing the energy. That is in Siemens. Then maltose, for which we can't talk much about it. So what I'm emphasizing that you should know that sucrose is a cane sugar or the table sugar. Then lactose is also found in milk. And these are the peculiar examples of disaccharides, and we have shown you how they can undergo hydrolysis to form two simple sugars. Then the classification number 3 is the polysaccharides. Saccharide is a Greek word that means sugar, isn't it? So oligosaccharides, as we have seen there, it means they have 2 sugar units. These ones are composed of 3 to 10 sugar units. They are composed of 3 to 10 sugar units. And on hydrolysis, they also produce mono sugars. And example here, you can give example like trehalose. Trehalose is a good example of oligosaccharides which have 3 to 10 sugar units. Then the last class of carbohydrates is polysaccharides, whereby poly means many. Polysaccharides, and poly means many, whereby these polysaccharides contain greater than 10 simple sugars. But the majority of them have greater than 100. Majority have greater than 100 simple sugars. And whenever this polysaccharide, the simple sugar is of the same, if it is the same, we call them polysaccharides. And if it is different, if the simple sugars are different, we call it polysaccharides. And examples of polysaccharides, we have like the ones of homopolysaccharides. If I can talk about homopolysaccharides, we have examples like glycogen, examples like starch, are examples of homopolysaccharides. Then heteropolysaccharides, the ones with the different sugar units, we have examples like hyaluronic acid, this is L, hyaluronic acid. We have keratan sulfate, we have damatane sulfate, we have chondroitin sulfate, and so on. Chondroitin sulfate, which are found in the synovial fluid. So these are the major classes of carbohydrates we can see in clinical chemistry, whereby we have monosaccharides, we have disaccharides, we have oligosaccharides, and the polysaccharides. And we have said the monosaccharides, these are simple sugars, and they cannot undergo hydrolysis. Then we have seen disaccharides, they are made up of two simple sugars, linked via a glycosidic bond. So the bonds found in carbohydrates are called the glycosidic bonds. That one, don't forget about it. And these disaccharides, when they can undergo hydrolysis under different enzymes to form two simple sugars, which we have seen. And then we have seen oligosaccharides, for them they have 3 to 10 simple sugars. Then polysaccharides, they have greater than 10. But we have said majority of them have greater than 100. And they can either be of the same, which we call homopolysaccharides. Homo means the same, then hetero means different. And we have seen also examples. So you must know examples so that when we are asked under MC choose, we are able to. Then maybe briefly, what I can remind you here, they can ask you that which of the following disaccharides is a non-reducing, which of the following disaccharide is a non-reducing. We know that sucrose is non-reducing. It's a non-reducing sugar, whereas maltose and lactose are reducing. Why is sucrose non-reducing? Because it doesn't have a free keto group. All of them are participating in the bonding. But maltose and lactose, for them, they have free aldehyde group. So they can be reduced. So maltose and lactose are reducing sugars, whereas sucrose is non-reducing. Then we have said sucrose is the table sugar or cane sugar. Then lactose is milk sugar. And then fructose is found in semen, which gives the sperm energy to run or to dash towards the egg. And this is classification. Finally, under introduction, we can talk about functions. We have been talking about carbohydrates, but what are they important in our body? So these carbohydrates are very important. So let us look at the functions of carbohydrates in the body. Functions of carbohydrates in the body. This introductory part is very examinogenic, so we should always know about it. So functions of carbohydrates. Functions of carbohydrates. Function number one is that carbohydrates, they provide energy. They provide energy in the form of ATP. In the form of ATP to the body. They provide energy to the body in the form of ATP. They are primary source. We can say that they are primary sources of energy. Then another thing, these carbohydrates, they form component of the cell. They are component. They offer what we call structural component. Structural component of the cell membrane. For example, we have carbohydrates like chitin, or you can call it chitin, is part of the cell in fungus. Like in fungus, we have chitin being the part of the structural cell membrane. Another importance of carbohydrates is that they are responsible for storage of energy. Storage of energy. An example here, we have glycogen in animals. Glycogen, this is in animals. Then we have also starch in the plants. This one is store energy. So carbohydrates, we can use them to store energy in the body. Then another thing, we have seen among the examples of monosaccharides, we saw pentoses being used in the biosynthesis of DNA. So we can use carbohydrates for synthesis of DNA, synthesis of nucleic acids, of nucleic acids like DNA, whereby we use deoxyribose, and RNA we use ribose. And the example here, we are using pentoses. We are using pentoses, which is ribose sugar. So these are some of the major examples of carbohydrates in the body. Major functions of carbohydrates in our body. On providing energy, being a primary source of energy, being a part of the cell membrane, then also storage of energy and synthesis of DNA and RNA. So these are the functions of carbohydrates. In the next video, we shall explain to you the digestion, absorption, and metabolism of carbohydrates. So this one marks the end of introduction. Please don't forget to subscribe and put your comments down. This one is